With Minecraft 1.13's update Aquatic on our shores, we're seeing one of the biggest overhauls to the game in quite a few years. Some massive changes are taking place, mostly focused on the oceans. There's a lot of great content, but there's still some potential to make it even better with a few tweaks, ideas, and alterations. I'm Simply Sark, and welcome. Let's take a look at 10 tweaks and improvements that could be made in Minecraft 1.13's update Aquatic. Okay, so to start out, let's tweak one of my favourite features in this update. If you place down a banner, right-click it with a map, you can now add labels to a map in the form of a little flag icon. This is awesome. If you're anything like me and you love world building and lore, it can be really satisfying to mark places in your world like oceans, cities, and landmarks. As great as this is, I do think there's something extra that could be added to make it even better. The banner icons are alright, but they don't necessarily suit every situation. What would be cool is if they added more icon types, like creeper faces, pins, skulls and bones, ships, towers, portals, trees, swords, all kinds. I reckon it'd really help to annotate what kind of landmark you're labelling, like a creeper face might indicate a dungeon. It could be pretty easy to implement as well. Maybe different banner motifs create different kinds of icons. Right, so the next thing we're going to talk about is Minecraft's newest weapon, the Trident. I'm really glad to see they added this to the game, because we've never actually had a new weapon, ever. I hope in the future we'll see even more fun new weapons to play with. Now the Trident itself is quite cool, it's pretty dang strong, it's great in the water, nevertheless I do think a slight misstep has been made with the Trident. My problem is how you actually get the Trident. It pretty much just drops from the new drown mob. The issue is that this weapon is really strong, it's basically a diamond axe mixed with a bow, it doesn't even need ammo. The fact that this kind of item just drops from a common mob feels unbalanced and kinda unceremonious for what it is, so I think getting the Trident should work differently. I saw this great suggestion from Reddit user Kiko100 and want to shine some more light on it. The ocean monuments is where the Trident should be found. It makes total sense, the monuments don't currently have a proper reward for conquering them. I mean, sure you get sponge, but that feels a little lame. The monuments are not only ocean themed, but they even use the same colour scheme as the Trident. So how would it work is the Trident would be shattered into 3 fragments. Where do you get these fragments? From Elder Guardians. Defeat all 3 in the monument and you'll have enough to combine them back into the full Trident. It's perfect, they're both water themed, they both heavily use the number 3, it's frankly shocking the devs seem to have missed this great opportunity. In Minecraft 1.13, the oceans have been changed dramatically, not just in content but also how the terrain generates. If you paddle around for a while, you'll soon enough find all kinds of new formations on the ocean bed. There was special effort to add some new underwater cave generation in the update Aquatic. Not only can you find underwater ravines, but even a variation called a thermal vent filled with magma that drags unsuspecting travellers down into the depths. Plus, caves can also now spawn pre-filled with water. This change adds some nice scenery, but it's as of yet failed to create any incentive to actually explore these new marine environments. There isn't currently anything in these caves worth the inconvenience of not being able to breathe underwater. It makes more sense to just stick to conventional caves. In light of this, I figured something should be done to make underwater caving a little more worthwhile. So another item that seems to have just been lumped onto the drowned is the Nautilus shell. This is an important new ingredient. I think a better way to implement the shell is for it to generate as an actual block. Perhaps you could only find it attached to the walls of deep sea caverns and ravines. This fleshes out the water caves a little bit and creates an extra adventure to go on. A cool addition you probably heard about was the new Phantom mob. It was added by a vote at Minecon and has had much speculation. I even myself made a video going over how it could work, which you should definitely check out because it's pretty wicked. The Phantom, or Mob B, or the Monster of Night Sky, it's got a lot of names, has went through a few iterations. The first take was terrible, looked really rubbish, but the second in current form is actually really nice. The new texture artist Jappa did a really good job on its model and skin. So the Phantom actually drops an item that retroactively is now the repair item for Elytra. I like this feature, the logic makes total sense, but it also gave me an idea. I thought it'd be cool if Elytra had a few unlockable skins that you earned through playing the game. Jeb showed interest in custom-made Elytra skins, but I reckon it'd be better if it were limited to a few well-made designs. How I reckon it could work is you'd have to achieve some tricky advancement in your world, and it'd then grant you a special Elytra skin to use. My example here is a Phantom Membrane skin, but you could have others like Ender Dragon, Chicken, or Parrot versions. Not only would these look really cool, but it'd give players a great nudge to participate in the new advancement system as well. Much to Billy K's delight, turtles were finally added to Minecraft. I actually really like how they went about adding this mob, largely for its unique breeding mechanic. Unlike other mobs, turtles don't just pop out a baby instantly, they have to migrate back to where they were born, lay a physical egg in the world, and then that egg needs to be protected for a few nights until it hatches. This is quite fun, but unfortunately it's not really to much avail. You can make both a novelty potion and also a new piece of equipable armour, the turtle shell. The turtle shell is essentially a fancy helmet, but it also has a special effect where if you're above water, you receive 10 seconds of water breathing effect. Now this might sound pretty good, but in actuality the turtle shell is quite redundant. We already have a mechanic in the game that offers a very similar effect, the respiration enchantment. Actually gathering the scoots to create the shell is quite a lengthy process, and when the respiration enchantment arguably does the same if not better job, you start to wonder if players will actually bother with the task of crafting the shell. That's why I think the turtle shell needs something else to really get people to go after it. I gave it some thought, and I think the turtle shell should also offer a special defensive effect when worn. Not resistance, but it'd be pretty cool if, say, 10% of the time, the shell was able to completely absorb a blow. Not necessarily fire or potion damage, but it makes sense that a turtle would be able to withstand melee and ranged attacks. So oceans have been changed a ton, but water itself has gone through a dramatic overhaul as well. Years in the making, the block limit has finally been removed. This means that new blocks and block states can be added without worrying about hitting the cap. This change was vital for the new water because now non-solid blocks can become waterlogged, or in other words, you don't get those ugly air pockets when you place things like stairs and slabs underwater. Now underwater visibility has also been reworked. You can see much more clearly in 1.13. Unfortunately, there are still some shortcomings with rendering, specifically with how water looks when observed from outside a body of water. The opacity of water has actually been reduced, but sadly, when you look at something like an aquarium, the water is still far too murky to really make out anything clearly. I think the way in which water renders through glass and stained glass still needs reviewing. I love all the new varieties of fish, but I would actually like to be able to see them. Another great feature in this update is the new buried treasure mechanic. I personally really like how they've went about implementing this idea because unlike a lot of other exploration content in the game, buried treasure has a really nice discovery mechanism to it. You feed a dolphin, the dolphin leads you either to a shipwreck or ruin, you've got to make a sometimes very deep dive, maybe fight off some undead, locate the map, then follow that to the big red X. It's nothing too complex, but it's great to see more adventuring aspects woven into the gameplay. Stuff like biomes, villages, mine shafts, temples and end cities don't have any of that. It's just randomly walking around, hoping to walk into something. So it's great to see. That said, I do have a small nitpick with something. I'm not really a big fan of the design of the ruins. Now the shipwrecks look great, but the ruins really shine a light on not just why we need more block variety, but also why half blocks like stairs, slabs and even the long contested vertical slabs start being necessary. There's some really poor structure design in Minecraft, and I think it's largely in part because Mojang can, at times, be a little stingy with blocks, where they reuse common or generic blocks instead of introducing something new. This is my problem with things like woodland mansions and now ruins. From a resource collecting standpoint, they bring nothing to the table. So it'd be nice to see some more unique new blocks for places like ruins. Perhaps some variations of the crafted stones, maybe with something like coral attached to them. Granite, sandstone, brick, and even the random bit of glazed terracotta not only don't look all that great, but aren't particularly interesting to find either. So I've kind of talked smack a little bit on the new drowned mob. I don't think they should drop either tridents or nautilus shells, and I must admit, after seeing the weird mob A at Minecon, it's a little disappointing the hoster mob we got was just yet another zombie variant. Feels a little too safe. That said, the design looks pretty cool, and from a gameplay perspective, it's good that oceans are no longer these safe havens with absolutely no danger to them. Although, I think the drowned need something extra to them to really cement them as something new and distinct from regular zombies. So what I reckon would be cool is if the drowned, as their name implies, actually tried to drown you. The way I picture it working is if you're inside a boat, the drowned will leave you alone, except from trying to harpoon you obviously, but if you're out swimming in open water, the drowned should silently creep up beneath you and drag you under the surface. Until you manage to whack them, they'll keep dragging you deeper, putting you in more and more danger. Not only would this be terrifying, but it'd make the oceans truly a place to be wary of. A feature you'll soon notice if you hang around thermal vents is that magma blocks beneath water will create a bubbling vortex that pulls entities underwater. There's actually a secret extra feature that's a little more hidden, where soul sand will create the complete opposite effect, propelling you or nearly any entity back up to the surface. These are both pretty fun to play around with, and you can make some pretty goofy stuff with them, like elevators and launchers. I reckon what would be even more fun though, is if there were a third type of bubble stream, a horizontal stream. Now admittedly this doesn't make much sense because bubbles don't actually travel sideways, but I think it has some pretty wacky potential either way. The emitter block would need to be something rotatable, so I think perhaps coral fans could work quite nicely as they can be placed on all sides of a block. This would make coral reefs absolute chaos, which I personally think would be quite funny, but it might have a bit of a performance impact too. So maybe if dead coral fans were ported over from bedrock, these could emit the bubbles instead, requiring player interaction. Maybe the type of coral changes how long or how much force the fan emits. So among all these changes and suggestions, I do actually have a pretty major bone to pick with this update. There's a feature I think has been executed quite poorly and I reckon needs a large rethink. It's the Conduit. Now I totally get why the Conduit was added to the game and much of its functionality is downright essential. Mojang have made a real push to legitimize underwater building in Minecraft 1.13. Obviously, we've always been able to build there, but big changes were necessary to make it enjoyable with visibility, water and block rendering, atmosphere, etc. So naturally, you need some mechanic that eliminates inconveniences like not being able to breathe or mine quickly. The Conduit offers this, but I still can't help but feel it's totally unnecessary. It's not very often we get new machines or devices. Things like enchantment tables and brewing stands were only added because they were completely necessary to deliver their respective gameplay elements. Mojang often give the vibe of not being wasteful with features, but to me the Conduit feels like this random offshoot of a beacon that's only got this one specific niche purpose. It's like adding a new aquatic crafting table that only crafts 5 items. I feel like practically all the functionality of the Conduit could have easily just been inserted into the beacon. There's an argument where perhaps they wanted underwater building to be accessible sooner than beacons become available, or that they wanted that part of the game to be tied to the aquatic experience. That's fair enough, but the Conduit even still feels underdeveloped and purposeless for the rest of the game. The part of the Conduit that I think stands out is the idea of it as a base core, this structure you build in the centre of your home that offers protections and defences. You can already see this in how the Conduit lights up the surrounding area and damages nearby mobs, but they both need much more fleshing out. The range of them is pretty insignificant. To be honest, I don't think the Conduit should even be restricted to the water. I think it could make sense for any type of base. I actually made a video a while ago about how to improve beacons, and much of those ideas could in fact be applied to the Conduit instead. Check it out and tell me what you think. But that's pretty much it. I'd love to know your thoughts. What do you think about the update Aquatic, and is there anything you'd like to see tweaked about the new content? But anywho, I've been Simply Sark, and cheers once again for watching.